Two brothers went into the mountains together. Only one came back. And even then, he wasn't found on a trail, or in a shelter, or beside a river. He was found buried beneath the ashes of a burned-out bonfire, curled into a space barely large enough for a child, his body cold, his heartbeat faint, and his eyes wide open, as if he had seen something he would never be able to describe. And the strangest part, there were no footprints around the site. No drag marks. No signs of struggle. No signs of the older brother anywhere. Just a half-collapsed fire ring, a blackened pile of wood, and a boy who shouldn't have been able to crawl under there himself. Rescuers didn't understand. Investigators couldn't explain it. And the survivor, the younger brother, never spoke a single word about what had happened in those mountains ever again. Today, we're going to walk into that story, piece by piece, step by terrifying step. But before we begin, please support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, turning on the notification bell, and leaving a comment. It helps more than you know, and it lets us keep sharing stories like this with you. Now, let's go back to the beginning, to the mountain that swallowed two brothers whole, and to the moment it tried to hide one of them forever. On the night he was found, the younger brother, 14-year-old Evan Hale, had only one thing clutched in his trembling hands: a scrap of fabric, charred at the edges, burned through in places, but still visible, still recognizable. It was a piece of his older brother's jacket. The jacket Noah, 18, had been wearing when the two boys vanished 4 days earlier. When rescuers tried to gently pry it from Evan's fingers, he didn't resist. He didn't speak. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He just stared at them with hollow, sunken eyes. Eyes that seemed to look through people instead of at them, and whispered only one sentence before going silent for the next 6 months. They tried to take Noah first. No one knew who they were. No one could find Noah's body. No one could make sense of the scene. And yet, the deeper investigators looked, the more horrifying everything became. So let me take you from the very beginning, from the moment the Hale brothers left home, to the moment only one of them was found beneath a pile of burned wood that shouldn't have been able to hide a living person. This is their story. Noah Hale wasn't the reckless type. At 18, he'd already earned a reputation in his small Colorado town as someone older than his years. Calm, responsible, steady. He worked weekends at a hardware store, applied for engineering programs at colleges he actually had a chance of getting into, and more than anything, he adored his younger brother Evan. Where Noah was calm, Evan was the spark. Full of energy, full of ideas, full of questions. He was the kind of kid who begged to explore old mines, wander abandoned cabins, and follow deer trails into places the park maps didn't even bother to label. And normally, Noah reined him in, kept him safe, kept him grounded. But that weekend, Noah let his guard down. It was supposed to be a simple overnight trip, a last hiking adventure before Noah left for college in the fall. Just the two of them. One night. Clear skies. Easy trails. Safe terrain. At least, that's what they thought. The brothers packed light. 2 sleeping bags, 1 tent, dehydrated meals, a water filter, a map, and Noah's old compass. They left their house on July 6, 2021. Their father snapped one final picture of them before they drove off. Noah in the driver's seat, smiling softly, Evan leaning in through the window, grinning like he couldn't wait. No one knew it would be the last photo ever taken of Noah alive. They reached the trailhead a little after 3 p.m. The parking lot was empty. The sky was clear. The air was warm. Everything looked perfect. Noah signed the entrance log. Time of entry, 3:12 p.m. Destination, Brookline Ridge. Expected return, next morning. Straightforward. Simple. The hike started easy. Pine trees swaying in a soft breeze. Sunlight falling in long strips across the ground. The kind of afternoon where the world feels peaceful. But about 2 miles in, Evan asked something strange. According to a hiker who later saw them on the trail, Evan said, "Noah, do you hear that? Someone's calling." Noah had paused, listened, then shook his head. "There's nobody out here, Ev. Only us." But Evan insisted. He pointed up the hill, toward the deeper forest. "Someone said our names." The hiker who overheard it told investigators it was eerie, because she hadn't heard anything. Not wind, not voices, nothing. She described Evan as uneasy, jumpy, like he was trying not to look scared. Noah, on the other hand, seemed calm, reassuring, almost over-reassuring, as if he didn't want Evan to worry, as if he didn't want to worry himself. The brothers reached the ridge around 5:40 p.m. 2 trail cameras caught them walking together, side by side, talking. Evan looked tired but fine. Noah looked focused, scanning the trees occasionally, but otherwise normal. But there was a detail in the footage that wouldn't be noticed until days later. In the background, far behind the boys, almost hidden, a tall shape appeared between the trees. A shape that didn't move, didn't walk, didn't shift, just stood, still, silent, watching. Investigators dismissed it at first as a tree trunk or a shadow or a glitch. But many people who saw the enhanced footage later weren't so sure. That would be the final recording of the Hale brothers together. They were expected home before noon the next day. They didn't return. By nightfall, they were officially missing. By sunrise on July 8th, the Hale brothers had been missing for nearly 24 hours. Their father, Michael Hale, reported them overdue at 9:17 a.m. He tried to sound calm on the phone with the ranger station, but the dispatcher later said she could hear something else in his voice. That quiet sound of a parent who already knows something is wrong. By noon, a full search and rescue team had been mobilized. The first ranger to check the parking lot, Officer Halloran, noted something that immediately bothered him. Noah's car was parked exactly where it should have been. Doors locked. No damage. No signs of trouble. But there was one detail that stood out. Evan's backpack, his small blue day pack, was sitting in the back seat. Not taken with him. Not used. Not touched. And Evan never hiked without it. Everyone in the family said the same thing. He brought that pack everywhere. Even to school. So why had he left it behind? The search teams fanned out across the trail. Dogs picked up the brothers' scent quickly near the ridge. For the first 2 miles, everything matched the trail camera footage. Clear, normal, expected. But half a mile past Brookline Ridge, the trail split. One path continued toward the official campsite. The other led downhill into dense, unmarked forest. A steep slope covered in thick underbrush, loose rock, and clusters of deadfall. A place no experienced hiker would choose. Especially not with a younger brother. But the dogs pulled downhill. Strong scent. Consistent trail. The brothers had left the path intentionally. No one understood why. Rangers radioed the findings to command. And that was the moment the search changed. This wasn't a case of hikers getting lost. It was a case of hikers going somewhere they shouldn't have gone. By early evening, searchers found something unsettling. A small clearing. A fire ring. Ashes still faintly warm. Someone had camped there, but not recently. Not within the last day. More like 2 or 3 days. That didn't make sense. Noah and Evan had only been out for one night. The site was primitive, thrown together in a hurry. Stones arranged sloppily. Charred branches scattered. No cooking equipment. No food wrappers. No tent. Just a circle of blackened ground and a single melted patch of nylon. Searchers froze when they saw it. Nylon meant gear that had been burned. Rangers photographed everything, collected samples, scanned the area, and that's when the dogs started barking. Not alerting to a person, alerting to a direction. The forest beyond the clearing. Their posture was rigid. Hackles up. Not excited. Afraid. One ranger tried to pull his dog forward. The dog whimpered, lowered itself to the ground, and refused. That wasn't normal. Not for trained SAR dogs. Something had frightened them. But no humans were found that day. No brothers. No footprints leading away. Just the forest, deep, dark, and impossibly silent. On the morning of July 9th, searchers expanded the grid east of the burned campsite. That's where they found it. A small notebook. Blue cover, water-damaged, edges torn. Half buried beneath a rotting log. Inside were sketches. Dozens of them. Some were ordinary. Trees, mountains, campfires. But others made the rangers go quiet. A tall figure drawn repeatedly, always half hidden behind trees. No face. No hands. Just a long, narrow silhouette. Beside one sketch, a note. Noah says not to look at it. Another page showed 2 stick figures, clearly meant to be the brothers. And behind them, a charcoal black shape towering over them. Underneath, written shakily, "It followed us last night." And on the last page that was fully intact, I heard it whisper Noah's name. The handwriting was confirmed later to be Evan's. But the ranger who found the journal didn't need confirmation. He said he could feel it the second he picked it up. This wasn't normal fear. This was something else. That afternoon, a fast-moving mountain storm rolled in, forcing all teams to retreat from the search area. But just before the last group turned back, Ranger Halloran noticed something odd about the ridge. A sound. A faint, rhythmic tapping echoing deep in the forest. He described it later. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't wind. It sounded like knocking. When asked what direction it came from, he pointed toward the old fire ring. Rangers returned to base as rain hammered the mountains, washing away tracks, destroying scent trails, and erasing evidence. Some said the storm was a coincidence. Others said it felt like something didn't want the brothers to be found. On July 10th, the skies cleared. Helicopters scanned the forest from above, while ground teams resumed their grid search. That's when a call came in over the radio. A volunteer, Sarah Greeley, had found something. A shoe. Small. Dark. Caked in mud. Size 7. Evan's size. It lay at the base of a massive fallen cedar, half hidden under ferns. But there was no sign of Evan nearby. No footprints. No broken brush. No drag marks. It was as if the shoe had simply appeared there. Next to it was something else. A strip of fabric. Burned at the edges. Charred almost completely through. Searchers later realized what it was. A torn piece of Noah's jacket. the same jacket he wore in the trail camera footage. The fabric was found 40 yards away from the burned campsite. Too far to be coincidence. Something happened there. Something violent, desperate, or impossible. This was the moment everything changed. Around 6:50 p.m., a search team near the eastern drainage radioed in. "We found a large fire pit. It looks wrong." Wrong was an understatement. The pit was enormous, nearly 6 feet across. Large logs arranged in a circle, burned down to blackened stumps. A mound of ash nearly a foot deep. But the strangest thing, the heat signature was still faintly detectable. The fire had burned within the last 24 hours. Which made no sense. The storm the previous night would have drowned any campfire. Unless it had been burning incredibly hot. Hot enough to survive heavy rain. And at the very center of the ashes, a small depression. A space just big enough for a human body. One ranger approached cautiously, using a stick to prod the ash. Something shifted underneath. The entire team froze. They cleared the debris slowly, carefully, and then they saw pale skin. An arm. A shoulder. A face. A boy curled into an impossible fetal position beneath the charred logs, his body buried under layers of ash and burned wood. Evan. Barely alive. Eyes open. Unblinking. Staring straight upward as if waiting for someone, or something, to return. Evan didn't scream when they pulled him out. Didn't cry. Didn't resist. He simply whispered, "Don't let it find me." When medics tried to ask what he meant, he went silent again. His entire body trembled. His pupils were dilated as if he had been staring into darkness for days. Someone asked him where his brother was. Evan only shook his head and mouthed, "It took him," and then he passed out. For the next 3 days, search efforts focused entirely on finding Noah. They found another piece of his jacket, a snapped shoelace, a torn page of Evan's notebook, a cold fire pit deep in the woods, claw-like marks on a tree trunk, too high for any animal native to the region. But they never found Noah himself. After 27 days, the official search was suspended. Unofficially, many searchers admitted something privately. They didn't think Noah died in those mountains. They thought he was taken. Evan spent 6 days in the hospital. He wouldn't speak, wouldn't write, wouldn't draw. Psychologists tried to coax out information. Nothing worked. But late one night, a nurse making rounds heard him murmuring. She leaned closer. Evan whispered, "It wanted Noah first, but it will come back for me." The nurse asked him what "it" was. Evan stared at her with terrified eyes and said, "The tall man with no face." When the nurse later described Evan's words to his family, their father went pale. Because 6 months earlier, Evan had drawn something almost identical. A tall, thin figure standing in the woods behind their house. A figure Michael had dismissed as imagination. Now he wasn't so sure. To this day, Noah Hale has never been found. Not even a trace. No remains. No belongings. No DNA. Nothing. Search teams, investigators, hikers. Everyone agrees on one thing. He didn't just get lost. He disappeared. And whatever Evan saw in those woods, he refuses to talk about it. The only thing he ever said, once, months later, was whispered to his therapist. "It watched us while we slept. And when Noah woke up, he wasn't Noah anymore." The therapist asked him what he meant. Evan closed his eyes and said, The forest took him. And it tried to take me too. In the weeks after Evan was found, law enforcement, search teams, and even federal agencies tried to piece together what happened in those mountains. But the deeper they looked, the stranger everything became. The sheriff's office announced the case was open and active. But behind closed doors, they admitted they didn't have a single coherent explanation. Still, theories began to form, some reasonable, some terrifying, some impossible to ignore. Theory 1: panic, confusion, and misadventure. The official explanation at first was the simplest. Noah got injured or disoriented. Evan got scared, and the two boys separated while trying to seek help. But that theory collapsed almost immediately. No footprints, no trail, no signs that Noah ever left the area. No evidence of an attack, no struggle, no fall, no blood. And there was something even stranger. Every single set of footprints found at the site belonged to Evan. Not a single one matched Noah's. Not even near the burned bonfire. How does an 18-year-old vanish without leaving a single print? The investigators had no answer. Some suggested a mountain lion, but predator experts shot that theory down instantly. A lion attack leaves drag marks, blood, torn clothing, scent trails. But there was none of that, not even a paw print. And a lion could not have burned a bonfire hot enough to survive a storm. Whatever happened at that fire pit was not nature. Perhaps the darkest theory was the one investigators didn't want to say out loud. Kidnapping. Someone watching the trail. Someone following the brothers. Someone who took Noah and left Evan behind. But again, the evidence broke apart. If a person had carried Noah away, there would have been broken brush, disturbed soil, boot prints, something. Instead, there was only silence. And then there was the detail no one could explain. How was Evan buried so deeply under burned timber, without leaving any signs of being dragged or pushed? His body had been curled inward, arms wrapped around his knees, a position he couldn't have gotten into after the logs collapsed. He would have needed help. But help from whom? Or from what? As word of the case spread, so did another theory. One whispered by rangers, passed between volunteers, and repeated cautiously by veteran searchers. Something in those woods had been seen before. A presence, a figure, a watcher. Over the last 40 years, at least 7 hikers had vanished in that same stretch of forest. 3 were never found, 4 were recovered days later with no memory of what happened. One older survivor, a man in his 60s, was found sitting in a river, hugging his backpack, shivering violently. When asked what had happened, he kept repeating the same phrase. "It followed me. It followed me all night." When he was asked what followed him, he whispered, "The tall man in the trees." The same phrase Evan would later use. Coincidence? Delusion? Or a pattern? Even investigators weren't sure anymore. 6 months after Evan was found, a park ranger anonymously leaked portions of the internal search log, entries that had never been shown to the public. Some of these notes were deeply unsettling. Dogs will not approach Eastern Ravine. 3rd attempt today. All teams report same behavior. Dogs showing fear response, tail tucked, refusing commands. Found animal carcass, deer. Body intact but eyes missing. No claw marks. No scavenging. Cause unknown. Volunteer claims he heard a child calling for help. No child found. Area swept twice. No tracks. One searcher reported seeing a person standing between trees near old fire site. Tall, thin, turned away when approached. Disappeared behind ridge within seconds. No prints found. Sound reported in distance, knocking or tapping. Heard by multiple team members. Direction inconsistent. We found marks on tree trunks approximate 8 feet high. Straight vertical scratches, evenly spaced. Not made by any known animal. Recommend closing eastern drainage to hikers. This area is unstable and unsafe. Something is wrong with that part of the forest. None of these entries became part of the public report. Officials claimed the logs were misinterpreted descriptions and in stress-related perceptions. But the rangers who were there told a different story. They said the logs were accurate. If anything, they said, the logs didn't reveal the half of it. For almost a full year, Evan spoke very little about what he saw in the mountains. But one winter night, during a therapy session that was later documented anonymously, Evan finally gave fragments of what happened. The therapist asked him to describe his last night with Noah. Evan began to tremble. His hands shook. Tears welled. But slowly, he spoke. He said the forest didn't feel right. Too quiet. Too dark. He said the air felt heavy, like something was breathing with them. He said Noah built a fire and told him to stay close. To not look into the trees. To not follow any voices if he heard them. Voices. Whose voices? The therapist asked. Evan swallowed hard. They sounded like us. The therapist leaned forward. Our voices. Evan nodded. Noah heard them first. Then I did. They sounded like someone far away, calling our names. The therapist asked what Noah did. Evan answered. He told me not to answer. He told me not to look. Look at what? Evan hesitated. Then, barely audible. The tall thing behind the trees. The therapist asked what the figure looked like. Evan shook his head violently. I'm not supposed to describe it. Why not? Evan covered his ears. Because that's how it finds you. These were the clearest details Evan ever gave. A something moved around their campfire at night. It never stepped into the light. It whispered their names. It called for Noah more often. Noah told Evan to keep his eyes shut. Evan fell asleep. He woke up alone. No fire. No Noah. No sound except wind moving through the branches. He called for his brother. No answer. He walked toward the trees, the direction Noah had last been sitting. But then he heard footsteps behind him. Slow. Heavy. Too heavy for a person. He ran back to the campsite. Found Noah's jacket torn. Found the fire pit still warm. He said he felt something watching him. He crawled under the logs, beneath the fire pit, and stayed there 4 hours, listening, waiting, trying not to breathe too loudly. When asked why he hid there, Evan said, "Because Noah told me to." Before he went into the trees, he said if anything happened, I should hide where the fire used to be. The therapist asked him, "Why the fire?" Evan replied, "Because the fire kept it away." A pause. And when the fire went out, it came closer. Theories resurfaced again. Some believed Noah wandered off trying to lure whatever was out there away from his brother. Some believed he tried to confront something and got lost or injured. Some believed he was taken by a person, by an animal, by something unknown. But there was one last detail Evan shared, one that changed everything. When asked if Noah said anything before he disappeared, Evan nodded. He said, "If it calls your name, don't answer. And don't follow me if I get taken." The therapist asked him, "Taken by what?" Evan didn't answer at first. Then he whispered, something that looked like Noah, but wasn't. The final report used one word: undetermined. No cause of death. No evidence of foul play. No signs of accident. No logical explanation. The forest reclaimed the truth. And Evan, now almost 3 years older, still wakes up some nights screaming, not for help, not for Noah, but for something else. Something still out there. Something still watching. His only consistent sentence during those episodes: "It remembers me." In the end, the Hale brothers' story leaves us with a chilling reality. Not every disappearance is an accident. Not every rescue brings answers. Not every survivor returns whole. And some places, no matter how beautiful, have shadows older than any map. Shadows that move. Shadows that follow. Shadows that wait. Noah Hale walked into those mountains a loving brother, a responsible young man, a kid with a future. He vanished without a trace. And Evan, buried beneath a bonfire as if someone was trying to hide him, survived something he can never describe. If you ever find yourself deep in the woods, far from the trail, far from help, and you hear your name whispered, remember this story, and whatever you do, don't answer. If you found this story gripping, haunting, or simply unforgettable, please take a moment to support the channel. Your like, your comment, your subscription, they all help keep stories like this alive. And if you're new here, welcome to a community that explores the strange, the unexplained, and the stories the world tries to bury. Hit the notification bell so you never miss another deep dive like this one. And remember, some mysteries stay unsolved. Some answers never surface. And some places, even today, are better left unexplored. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. Stay curious. And I'll see you in the next story.